Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Thoughtful Testing. This is Manual Testing by Lubna Sayeda. In this video, we'll be talking about test case design techniques. What are those techniques? Why do we need techniques? And what's the importance of techniques? Why do we need technique? We need techniques to understand that our test cases have 100% coverage. Now, let's see what are those five test case techniques. Here are the five test case techniques listed, which is error guessing, equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis, decision table, state transition. Let's get started with error guessing. Error guessing by the name itself is very simple to understand. It is nothing but identifying and or guessing an issue prone area from it that actually comes from testers experience. So you can assume that this area or this functionality can be more issue prone, so you can start guessing errors in that area. Moving on to next technique, which is equivalence partitioning technique. In this equivalence partitioning technique, it helps us, it's actually a time saving technique. Why? Because it helps you dividing the requirement into certain ranges or classes. Okay, now let's see what I am trying to say with an example. Let's assume your functional requirement document says about a text field should contain 300 or should accept 300 characters. Now we cannot, if we are testing, if as a test engineer, if you are entering one, two, three, one by one and testing the requirement, it will take a lot of time for a test engineer to complete that test requirement. So instead of entering every value one after the other, what we do in this technique is we divide that criteria into ranges. Now what I'm saying is, let's see here, in this text field is accepting 300 characters. The limit for the text field is 300 characters. It should not accept beyond 300. Now what I did is I have divided that 300 into certain ranges, which allows us to divide. This techniques allows us to divide that ranges into that criteria into certain ranges. Now what I have done, I have taken 1 to 100, 101 to 200, 201 to 300, and 301 to 400. What I'm going to do now is, in the first range, which is 1 to 100, I'll pick any intermediate value, say about 50, 60, 75, 35, 95, any value, and we will enter in the text field. And when we click on hit enter, whatever it is, how the button is named, that test case passes, which means it is accepting all the values between 1 to 100, and the test case passes. We move on to the next scenario, which is 101 to 200. We again pick an intermediate value from 101 to 200. It can be anything. It can be 100, it can be 150, it can be 165, it can be 170, anything up to 200. Okay, and we enter that value in the text box. What happens, that criteria passes. Now we move on to the third criteria, which is 201 to 300. We pick again any intermediate value, and that will also pass. Now what's the next scenario, which is a negative scenario? Why is it a negative scenario? It is negative because the limit of the text field is 300. Now our fourth range is 301 to 400. If you are picking up any value out of 301 to 400, it has to fail, because the requirement says that it should accept only value between or up to 300, right? So we cannot go beyond. So this equivalence partitioning is a time saving technique. It allows you to divide your uh, functionality into ranges or classes, and you can pick any value among that range which you have created, and test the functionality, which is also making sure that is 100% coverage. You might ask how, because in 1 to 100 range you are testing, which is nothing but you are testing 1 to 100 limit of character limit of that field. Any number, any value in between the 1 to 100 will pass. Any value between 101 to 200 will pass. Any value with 201 to 300 will pass, but anything beyond 300 should fail. So this technique helps us in saving time. It helps us in dividing our criteria into ranges. Hope that's clear. If not, please write your questions in your comment box. Moving on to the next technique, which is boundary value analysis. Boundary value analysis, by the name itself, you say you are testing the test cases to a boundary levels. Okay. Now this is a definition of boundary value analysis. Let's take an example and see. Now, basically, there is a rule of writing test cases for boundary value analysis. So, if we have a range of values between A and B, and you have to design test cases in such a way you are testing the extreme limits and the intermediate limits, right? Extreme is A plus 1, A minus 1. Then it comes to B, B plus B, B plus 1, and B minus 1. Now let's assume we have two values, 1 and 10. and a being 1 and a equal to 1 and b equal to 10. Now below is how I have divided the test cases into, and what are the scenarios which will come out of this. Okay, so a minus 1 will be 0, a is 1, a plus b is 2, b minus 1 is 9, b is 10, b plus 1 is 11. So you will, this way you will get six scenarios. So you have to write test cases based on the six scenarios. Okay, now let's move on to another technique, which is decision making technique. So decision making technique is generally based upon conditions and what do you say, combinations, conditions and combination. And in this technique, we have conditions are taken as input and action is taken as output. Now this, what do I mean by this? This is actually a table which helps you in understanding. Now let's take an example. In this example, assume that you are owning a company. Like I have written food delivery company, it can be anything. So in that company you are giving certain discounts, like to a new customer you're giving 15%, to a old customer or repeated customer you're giving 10% discount, and there is also a coupon code which talks about 30% discount, right? Now here the number of test cases will be, number of test cases equal to number of rules, equal to 2 to the power of number of conditions. How many conditions are there? There are three conditions. New customer 15%, repeated customer 10%, coupon code 30%. So there are three conditions, right? So what will you do? Which is equal to 2 to the power of 3, which is equal to 8. So here you will get 8 scenarios and your decision table will look like this. So this is how you build your decision table. To first column will be your rules or condition. Then how many rules you are getting in this? In this we got 8. So there should be 8 rules. Here it should be 8 rules. Now this is how the decision table looks like based on the number of test cases. Now let's see how do we fill this table. Now there is a rule. When you have, now here we have 8 rules. Okay, so I'm showing with 8 rules, but I'll give you an example of lesser rules also. So the thumb rule here is first 4 will be true and the last 4 will be false. Okay, this is a thumb rule. So first four columns of the table will be true and the last four columns of the table will be false for the first rule. The second rule will be first two columns will be true, next two columns will be false, next two columns will be true, next two columns will be false. And the third rule will be alternate, true and false. This is how we fill table. Suppose this is 8 table. Suppose in this requirement, I am only giving two conditions. Okay. So now the number of test cases will be 2 to the power of 2, which is 4. So you will have only 4 rules. In this 4 up to 4 rules, you will write 2 as true, 2 as false. Then in the second one, you will write 1 as true, 2 as true, 2 as false. Then in the third one, you will write true, false, true, false. Okay, you just need to concentrate on the first one. First two will be true, second two will be false. Now, what we are doing here, what are we understanding? Why are we writing true, true, false, false for everything? So now what it says, rule 1. Rule 1, what is saying, if you go by this rule 1, this complete column, now what is saying, there is an application for delivering application. So here you are a new customer, you have 15% discount. That is true. You are not old customer. Okay, and you also have a 30% coupon. This test case is not applicable. Why? If you are a new customer, you cannot be an old customer, but according to this table this value is true, so this test case is invalid, right? Generally we as a tester won't test such test cases, but it is good, I would say, to test the negative scenario as well. Now, what's the second rule? The second rule is new customer is 15%, old customer is 10%, and coupon code is 30%. This is also an invalid because if it is a new customer, he cannot be an old customer, right? Now, move on to the third one. Third one is a true, it's an executable test case. Why? It's a new customer, 15% discount. He is not an old customer, very good. He is having a coupon code also. So, as a new customer, he's getting 15% discount. As a coupon code, he's having 30% discount. So, altogether, he'll get 40%. This is a valid test case, right? So, this condition goes true. True, false, true. Okay. Now let's move on to the fourth rule. Fourth rule, what it is saying, it's a new customer. You're getting 15% discount. When if it is a new customer, he cannot be an old customer, which is false. He is not having a coupon code, that's okay. So he's getting 15% discount. It's a valid scenario. Moving on to rule 5. He is not a new customer. He's an old customer. He's already having a test 10% discount. He is also having a coupon code of 30%. So altogether he'll be getting 40% of discount. It's a valid test case. Forget about the percentages I'm mentioning. I'm just trying to show it's a valid test case. Now, rule number six: he is not a new customer. Yes, he's an old customer. Yes, he's a true. I mean, he's having old customer 10% discount. He's not having coupon code. That's okay. So he's getting this 10% discount. This is a valid scenario. Now, rule number seven: he is not a new customer. He is not an old customer, but still he got a coupon code from somewhere else. Well, what will you do with that coupon code? Coupon code that goes invalid, right? So this rule, this test case is invalid scenario, but it is a negative scenario. You can test as a tester as a negative scenario. Moving on to rule number eight, which everything is false. It's an invalid scenario that doesn't exist. As a tester, we don't test also. Now moving on to the next technique, which is state transition technique. Now, what is state transition technique? State transition technique generally helps us in testing different states of machine. You know, different states. What a machine is going through, different stages, different states of a machine, or different states of test cases. Okay. Now let's see an example. Assume that you have a food delivering app. Now what happens? Or say you are an HDFC user or a Benny bank user. So what happens generally? You get three attempts, right? So when you are attempting for the first time, it is passing through one state, right? You're making a login attempt. It is failing or passing, whatever it is, but it is passing your information from one state to another, right? So now let's take an example and see how it works. Now suppose you have launched an application. You launch an application. If your login is successful, you move. If login pass, you go, you log in, you make the first attempt. It gives you an attempt to try again. You enter all your details or credentials, password, whatever, you enter it correct. You move on to invalid. You moved on to this third attempt. You enter correct details and you can order food. But in case you're ordering or you're logging into the application incorrectly multiple times, so generally it is three times, right? So what happened when your login for the first time fails? It moves on to the second attempt, it fails. Third attempt, it fails, it blocks you. So you are testing at different stages of machine, right? So that is what called as a state transition technique. It is very simple to understand. Only thing is you need to understand what you are testing in state transition, how these techniques will be applied to your requirements, what is the need, when you can bring these techniques into picture. That is very important. But at the same time, it is also important to have a brief knowledge of all these techniques to make sure that we can put this techniques into our daily uses of writing test cases, especially to newcomers who are new to the industry. These techniques will be very, very helpful. These questions will be asked to everybody in generally freshers to in interview questions. So please make sure you read through these techniques. I have explained in very brief. Please let me know if you have any questions in comment. I'll be replying back. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please keep yourself updating by following the below uh, links. Thank you so much.